I think more shock and dauntingness was more of the feeling I felt. But
Behind Buckingham Palace's golden gates, a storm was brewing that no smile, ceremony, or royal wave could conceal. What began as a simple request spiraled into the most explosive showdown the monarchy had endured in decades when Queen Camilla demanded Princess Catherine surrender her most treasured tiara. This was more than jewels. The sapphire and diamond masterpiece symbolized love, legacy, and a direct, unbroken bond to Queen Elizabeth's heart. That single demand unleashed Prince William's fury in ways no one anticipated, exposing the hidden, ruthless power struggles lurking behind the polished walls of the palace. Stay with us as we reveal every shocking twist of this royal drama. The royal confrontation began in the afternoon, sunlight streaming through the towering windows of the blue drawing room. Catherine was arranging fresh white roses in a crystal vase, a quiet ritual giving her a rare moment of calm after a demanding week of royal duties. The palace itself seemed unusually still, with William away on a 3-day Scottish tour, leaving her to bear the full weight of public expectation alone. The silence shattered with the soft click of heels on marble. Queen Camilla entered, her practiced smile warm, but her stance betrayed intention. Catherine had learned to read these subtle signals. The quiet code that signalled a conversation of consequence was about to unfold. "Catherine, darling, I trust you. Do not mind me dropping in," Camilla said smoothly, easing into an antique armchair. "There is something rather important I wish to discuss with you privately." Setting aside the roses, Catherine turned toward her stepmother-in-law, her expression composed in the way years of duty had trained her. "Of course, Camilla. What is it?" Camilla's tone shifted, authority rolling off every word. "It concerns the upcoming state dinner for the Japanese delegation. I've been considering the jewels, and your sapphire tiara would be absolutely perfect. Its deep blue will harmonize beautifully with my navy gown and send a subtle yet powerful message about Anglo-Japanese friendship, something that cannot be understated." The suggestion landed heavily, though Catherine's face remained serene. The George VI sapphire tiara had been her wedding gift from the late Queen, a piece imbued with history and intimate meaning. Lending it out felt like handing over a fragment of her own identity. "I had not realized you intended to wear a tiara to that dinner," Catherine said carefully. "I thought perhaps the sapphire necklace and earrings might be more fitting." Camilla's smile tightened. "As Queen, I must make the strongest impression before our guests. A tiara conveys the full majesty of the monarchy. Surely you appreciate the importance of presenting a united family front at such a crucial occasion." The phrasing struck Catherine like a sharp rebuke. United family front. This was not a request. It was a command, dressed in diplomacy, weighted with expectation. Resisting risked appearing selfish. She hesitated, torn between loyalty and personal attachment. The late Queen had once whispered, "These sapphires mirror your eyes and your steadfast spirit. Seeing them worn by another would feel like betrayal." "It is indeed a significant piece," Catherine said slowly, her voice calming though her heart raced. Her Majesty was always particular about when and how it should be worn, which is exactly why it would be ideal for this dinner. The late Queen would have approved, Camilla replied smoothly. These jewels belong to the crown, not to one individual. The subtle but heavy reminder of hierarchy pressed down. Catherine felt once more the truth of her position. Not born to this life, but bound to it, navigating a system where protocol always outweighed personal sentiment. The reluctant agreement settled between them. The room seemed to shrink, walls of the blue drawing room pressing in as silence lingered. Catherine's fingers brushed the edge of the vase, grounding herself in the familiar coolness of crystal. She could hear her heartbeat echoing in the hush, while Camilla's presence filled the room with quiet authority that demanded a resolution. Catherine knew exactly what was expected. Years within the firm had taught her that duty often required swallowing pride and yielding personal preference. Yet this was different. This was not a gown, a speech, or a ceremonial gesture. It was a treasure entrusted to her by the hand of the late Queen herself. Given in a moment of deep trust and recognition, she recalled the words whispered softly, almost like a blessing. "These sapphires suit you, my dear. They reflect your constancy." To let them pass from her head to another, even for a single evening, felt like breaking a silent covenant. Catherine knew that standing against the will of a reigning queen risked far more than an awkward moment. It could fracture the fragile balance of influence and respect within the family, the very balance she had worked tirelessly to maintain. Camilla watched her closely, her smile gentle but edged with certainty, as if she already knew the outcome. "Catherine, you have always shown such grace in these matters. It would mean a great deal to me, and more importantly, it would mean a great deal for the crown." The invocation of the crown left little room for retreat. Catherine drew a breath, steadying her voice. "If it is truly your wish, then the tiara will be at your disposal for the dinner." Camilla's eyes gleamed with satisfaction, though her words were coded. "In courtesy, how very thoughtful of you. I knew I could rely upon your good sense." A wave of resignation washed over Catherine as she spoke the words aloud. It felt as though she had signed away a fragment of her soul, yet she kept her face composed. That was her role, never letting the private storm show. The Queen rose gracefully, smoothing the folds of her skirt. "I shall have the staff make the necessary arrangements. You have relieved me greatly, my dear. Our guests will be most impressed." She leaned forward, pressing a perfunctory kiss to Catherine's cheek, then departed with the same measured elegance with which she had entered. When the door closed, Catherine sank into the nearest chair. A quiet sigh escaped her lungs as she was alone again. She allowed the mask to slip, brow furrowing under the weight of compromise. She had agreed, yet her heart recoiled from the decision. Her eyes drifted toward the vase of roses, their whiteness stark against the crystal, a symbol of purity overshadowed by necessity. She reached out, adjusting a single bloom as if restoring order to the arrangement might steady her own spirit. Duty had won the moment, but within her, a quiet vow formed. The tiara would return to her keeping, and its meaning would not be forgotten. Whispers in the corridors spread like wildfire. Word of Catherine's reluctant concession did not remain confined to the blue drawing room. Within hours, the news had threaded through the palace's intricate lattice of staff, courtiers, and private secretaries. By evening, everyone from the most junior footman polishing silver to the most senior official reviewing ceremonial plans had caught some version of the story. The details shifted in retelling, but the heart of the matter was clear. Queen Camilla had asked for the George VI sapphire tiara, and Catherine had agreed. In the basement dining hall, where staff gathered for their evening meal, opinion was divided but strongly felt. Mrs. Patricia Hartwell, who had served as Catherine's dresser for 3 decades, spoke with firm conviction. "It is not proper, if you ask me," she declared, setting her teacup down with such force that the china rattled. "That tiara was given by the late Queen herself to Princess Catherine on her wedding day. You do not pass around such treasures as if they were mere trinkets from the collection." Thomas Ashford, a senior valet with a natural instinct for diplomacy, nodded cautiously. "Protocols exist for these things. Personal gifts are not meant to circulate like communal property. They carry history, sentiment, not just sparkle." His words were measured, yet the warning in them was plain. Conversations snapped to silence the moment Jennifer Walsh, Queen Camilla's personal secretary, entered the room. Her polite smile betrayed nothing, but the tightening of her eyes spoke volumes. She had clearly caught the gist of their debate as she poured her tea. The room fell instantly still, every servant reminded that the palace walls never lacked ears. Elsewhere, in the upper offices, the tone was more discreet, but just as unsettled. Sir Edward Pemberton, Deputy Private Secretary, spent much of the evening fielding careful questions. "Is there a precedent for this?" asked Margaret Collins, overseeing ceremonial events. "We need absolute clarity before taking any steps." Sir Edward's response was neutral, deliberately so. "Every case has its own circumstances. We will proceed with the utmost care." Though his words sounded steady, the unease in his eyes betrayed him, even behind the palace's most secure doors. Senior advisers spoke with unusual frankness. Jonathan Pierce, a veteran courtier, leaned back in his chair. "This isn't the first boundary to be nudged. Think of Princess Anne's emerald brooch last year, or the Countess of Wessex's bracelet. Each incident had been couched in the language of family duty or diplomacy, but the pattern was unmistakable. Sarah Hamilton, flipping through her private notes, added softly, "If no one intervenes, the lines between personal gifts and crown property may blur entirely, and that would serve neither the monarchy nor its stability." Meanwhile, in her private rooms, Catherine attempted to immerse herself in correspondence, yet her hands kept straying to the sapphire earrings at her ears. They gleamed faintly, reminders of the tiara waiting in its velvet case. The thought of that case lying empty gnawed at her. Lady Susan entered quietly, carrying a leather folder. "Your Royal Highness, I have reviewed the tiara's insurance documentation. Should you wish to reconsider, there are requirements that could offer an honourable way forward." Catherine looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "What kind of requirements?" "Security clearance of 48 hours, Susan explained. "Special environmental conditions during transport, and most crucially, written approval from Prince William for any transfer of personal wedding gifts." For the first time since her reluctant agreement, Catherine felt the weight on her heart ease slightly. Despite Lady Susan's careful procedural delays, the tiara transfer moved forward without obstruction. Queen Camilla's staff, efficient and determined, had anticipated every potential hurdle. Insurance requirements signed, security clearances expedited, environmental protocols satisfied with suspicious ease. Catherine could not shake the feeling that this had all been planned long before Camilla entered the blue drawing room. Her reluctant agreement had been less a choice than a final confirmation of a decision already made. The night of the Japanese state dinner arrived in full grandeur. The state dining room sparkled under 3 massive chandeliers, crystal prisms scattering light across tables laid with priceless china, gilded cutlery, and polished silver. Diplomats, cabinet ministers, and society's elite gathered in glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos, a tableau of power and elegance crafted to impress the foreign delegation. Catherine remained in her private sitting room, officially absent due to a scheduling conflict. In truth, she could not bear to witness Camilla wearing the tiara that symbolized her bond with the late Queen. The televised broadcast began, ceremonial pomp filling the screen as the Japanese emperor arrived, and formal greetings were exchanged. Catherine's breath quickened. As coverage shifted to the pre-dinner reception, she knew the moment was coming, the moment her most cherished possession would appear on another woman's head. Then Camilla entered. The George VI sapphire tiara blazed beneath the chandeliers, deep blue stones shimmering with almost otherworldly brilliance. The effect was breathtaking, precisely as Camilla intended. Commentators immediately praised the magnificent choice and the perfect match with her navy gown. Catherine leaned forward, only for her ears to catch the commentator's mistake, attributing the tiara to the late Queen Mother. The error hit like a physical blow. Not only had her personal wedding gift been claimed visually, but its true story was being erased in real time. Every newspaper in Britain, and many abroad, would repeat the same inaccuracy, stripping the tiara of its true significance. Yet, she could not look away. Every camera angle lingered on the sapphires, capturing them as Camilla turned, smiled, and mingled effortlessly with dignitaries. International photographers clamoured for images, immortalising Catherine's gift as part of Camilla's crown. When the Japanese emperor admired the tiara, Catherine wondered what tale Camilla spun about its history. Was there even a mention that it was a personal gift from Elizabeth? She doubted it. Lady Susan entered softly, placing a tray of tea beside her mistress. "The cameras adore the sapphires," she remarked gently, offering comfort without pressing the subject. Catherine nodded, her voice catching on air. Camilla raised her glass for the formal toast, sapphires catching the light magnificently. To the world, they symbolized regal splendor. To Catherine, they burned with memory. Elizabeth's hands resting tenderly upon her head, whispering words of blessing. The tiara would return, yes, but it would never again be wholly hers. William's discovery came shortly after. Prince William's return from Scotland was delayed by relentless weather, forcing his helicopter to divert to Yorkshire, turning a routine journey into an unplanned overnight stay. By the following afternoon, fatigue pressed heavily upon him, yet the thought of reuniting with Catherine after 3 days lifted his step as he entered her private study. She was at her desk, surrounded by correspondence and briefing papers. At first glance, she seemed composed, but after 12 years of marriage, William's instincts sharpened. He immediately read the truth in her stillness, the careful grip of her pen, the set of her shoulders, the faint tightness around her eyes, all signals of restraint too heavy to share. "Darling, I missed you," he murmured, bending to kiss her forehead before taking the chair beside her. "How was the Japanese state dinner? I caught some coverage, though the connection was dreadful." Her pen paused mid-sentence, the silence stretching unnervingly. "It went very well, from what I understand," she said, measured, very diplomatic, very successful. William frowned. Catherine usually recounted such evenings in vivid detail. Her studied neutrality set off alarms. "You didn't attend? I thought it was in your diary." "I had other commitments," she said softly, eyes lowered. Camilla represented the family beautifully. The tiara looked lovely on her for a moment. William's mind stumbled, then clarity struck like a blow. "She wore your tiara, the sapphire tiara." Catherine's composure wavered, eyes glistening. William saw that she had been holding back tears. The sight ignited something fierce in William, an anger that surged against the careful diplomacy he had honed all his life. "She asked to borrow it," Catherine whispered, almost apologetically. "She insisted it was appropriate for the delegation. I could hardly refuse without seeming uncooperative." The words burned. William's hands clenched as he paced to the window, fury rising with every step. The George VI sapphire tiara was not merely another heirloom, it was his grandmother's personal gift to Catherine, chosen with thought and love. Elizabeth had once told him privately that the sapphires symbolized Catherine's steadfast nature, her courage in joining the family. To see the tiara reduced to a prop for diplomacy felt like an offense against that memory. "She asked you to give her your wedding present to parade before foreign dignitaries." His voice was edged with steel. "She framed it as duty," Catherine said softly. "She claimed the late Queen would have wanted such treasures used for state occasions. The jewels belong to the crown, rather than the individual." William turned sharply, his expression darkening. "That is manipulation, nothing less." He struggled for composure, but his voice trembled with contained rage. "Where is it now?" "Still with Camilla's staff," Catherine admitted. "They mentioned official portraits before its return." The casual extension of the loan deepened William's sense of violation. It was no longer just jewellery. It was an assault on memory, loyalty, and the sanctity of a gift meant to bind Catherine forever in his grandmother's trust. William spent the afternoon quietly investigating, drawing upon the discreet network of staff who had served his family loyally for decades. What he uncovered did not calm his anger, it sharpened it, igniting a determination that Catherine would not endure such treatment. The most troubling revelations came from Mrs. Patricia Hartwell, the senior dresser, who agreed to speak privately in his study. Her voice trembled with respect and indignation. "Your Royal Highness, this is not the first incident of its kind. Over the past 18 months, there have been several occasions when Her Majesty requested personal items from Princess Catherine. Each time, these requests were framed as family duty or diplomatic necessity." William's jaw tightened. "What sort of items?" "Jewellery mainly, a few accessories, even clothing for certain appearances," Mrs. Hartwell explained, discretion battling concern. "Princess Catherine has always complied, but afterward she seems diminished. The staff notice her distress." Hearing this, William's anger transformed into deliberate calculation. This was no single misstep by Camilla. It was a pattern, a slow erosion of Catherine's autonomy, exploiting her desire to maintain peace in a complicated family. To William, it looked less like tradition and more like bullying disguised as solidarity. Later, Sir Edward Pemberton, Deputy Private Secretary, offered further clarity in a carefully arranged meeting. "Department heads are increasingly concerned about the precedent being set," he confided. "The line between personal gifts and crown property is foundational. If blurred, it risks undermining centuries of protocol." "Has anyone confronted the Queen directly?" William pressed. "There have been efforts through proper channels," Sir Edward admitted, "but they have not altered the pattern." It was clear the household had reached its limits. Loyalty to Catherine was evident, but staff were powerless to protect her. Responsibility now rested squarely on him. That evening, William called his father, hoping the king might intervene. Instead, he came away more disheartened than ever. "Camilla is fulfilling her role with dignity," Charles said, voice tinged with weary dismissal. "Jewels are meant to be worn, not hidden." William's patience fractured. That tiara was Granny's wedding gift to Catherine. It was not a stage prop to impress dignitaries. "William, you are being dramatic," Charles countered. "Family members have always shared jewellery. It is tradition." The call ended unresolved, leaving the familiar ache of disappointment settling in William's chest. If his father would not protect Catherine, he would. Back in their apartments, he found Catherine attempting to read, her gaze unfocused. He sat beside her. I spoke with father. Alarm flickered in her eyes. William, I do not want you quarrelling with your family. The tiara will be returned. Let it go, she said softly. He took her hands firmly. This is not about the tiara. It is about you. Your dignity, your place, your worth. Granny gave you that tiara because she loved you. To see it misused is to see her memory misused. Catherine's composure broke, tears spilling freely. William held her tightly, rage and tenderness mingling. Tomorrow, he vowed, I will confront Camilla myself. The royal showdown. William arranged a private meeting with Queen Camilla the next morning, insisting it be held without aides or witnesses. He deliberately chose the morning room at Clarence's house, a space associated closely with her, to avoid any impression of ambush. The setting made clear. He came not for petty argument, but for serious reckoning. Camilla arrived punctually, her polished smile faltering as she registered William's rigid stance and simmering anger. She sank into her usual chair, voice smooth and practiced. William, how good to see you. How is Catherine? I so appreciated her generosity with the tiara. It made such a splendid impression at the dinner. The word generosity ignited William's fury. He did not sit, his towering presence underscoring the seriousness of his intent. Camilla, we need to discuss your treatment of my wife. What happened with the tiara was unacceptable. It must never happen again. Camilla blinked, expression sharpening. I beg your pardon. I asked to borrow a piece of jewellery for an important occasion. Catherine agreed readily. There was no issue. Catherine felt she had no choice but to agree. William's voice hardened. You twisted her loyalty into a tool of pressure. That tiara wasn't just jewellery. It was a wedding gift from my grandmother, a symbol of her love and acceptance. Camilla's lips thinned. As queen, I have obligations. Presentation is part of diplomacy. The tiara served the crown. By honouring our guests as my wife, Catherine has rights, William snapped, struggling to contain his composure. This was not an isolated request. You've taken advantage of her good nature for months, pressuring her to surrender personal items under the guise of duty. Camilla rose, her voice gaining steel. That is an outrageous accusation. I have never bullied Catherine. Everything I requested was in service to the monarchy. The dam of William's restraint broke. He pictured Catherine's tears, the anguish she tried to conceal. You made my wife cry over a tiara representing one of the most meaningful moments of her life, and you dared invoke my grandmother's memory as leverage. That is manipulation, pure and simple. Camilla's cheeks flushed. Your grandmother would have understood. These jewels exist to serve the crown, not sentimental attachments. William's reply cut like a blade. That tiara was not crown property. It was my grandmother's personal gift to Catherine. She chose it to bind her to this family, not to have it paraded by anyone else. Voices rose, echoing against the morning room walls. Camilla accused him of dramatics, of letting emotion cloud duty. William responded with a precise catalogue of her encroachments, each incident a reminder of how Catherine had been forced to yield. Finally, Camilla played her trump card. I am queen. My precedence is clear. William met her gaze without flinching. You are my father's wife, he said coldly, but you will never have the right to mistreat mine. Fallout and consequences. The explosive confrontation between William and Camilla sent immediate tremors through the palace. Though the morning room doors remained closed, staff stationed nearby heard raised voices and fragments of the argument. Within hours, edited versions of events spread through the household's invisible communication channels. Some claimed William had shouted about betrayal. Others whispered that Camilla had invoked her status as queen with unusual ferocity. What was certain was that loyalties had divided, and tension now clung to every corridor. King Charles learned of the altercation from his private secretary, who delivered a carefully worded account that could not disguise the gravity of the situation. Charles faced the unenviable task of mediating between his heir and his wife, two people utterly convinced of their own righteousness, neither showing the slightest inclination to yield. Catherine withdrew to her apartments, heart heavy with guilt. She had wanted to avoid conflict, yet her reluctant agreement had ignited a family crisis. Lady Susan stayed close, offering quiet companionship while subtly rescheduling engagements to shield her from prying eyes. I never wanted this to become a public battle, Catherine admitted over tea. Now the entire household knows, and I feel I've divided the family. Susan's reply was unusually firm. Your Royal Highness, you are not responsible for other people's choices. Prince William was defending you, as any devoted husband should. Meanwhile, Camilla gathered her own circle of confidants, spinning the episode as a gross overreaction by a son, spoiled by decades of deference. In her version, she was the dutiful queen, unfairly attacked for fulfilling her role. Her supporters reinforced this narrative, leaving her more determined than ever to stand her ground beyond the palace walls. The press began to sense strain. Royal correspondents noted a sudden absence of joint engagements, the stilted formality of public statements, and the careful choreography of appearances. None knew the details, but whispers of discord gained momentum. Princess Anne, ever pragmatic, attempted to mediate. She met William privately, urging caution. I understand your instincts. Protect Catherine, she said bluntly, but public clashes only strengthen Camilla's hand. They make you look rash. She bullied my wife into surrendering her wedding gift, William replied tightly. Anne found no more success with Camilla, who insisted William's conduct had been outrageous regardless of circumstances. Neither side budged an inch, and the tiara remained in Camilla's custody. Its absence became a painful symbol. Catherine could not bring herself to wear her matching sapphires. Each glimpse of bluestone reminded her of the missing crown and the storm it had unleashed. Staff struggled to navigate the new terrain. Even scheduling a reception or drafting a speech carried political implications. Departmental meetings became masterclasses in diplomacy, as no one wished to appear aligned with either camp. Matters came to a head when King Charles summoned both William and Camilla to Buckingham Palace for what he described as a family discussion behind closed doors. Everyone understood the truth. The monarchy itself was about to be tested. The family meeting at Buckingham Palace was convened in the Regency Room, chosen for intimacy. Despite the formality, King Charles positioned himself carefully between William and Camilla, body language betraying weariness and resolve. He knew the monarchy's dignity depended upon finding a resolution, yet he understood the personal wounds ran deep. We cannot continue with this level of discord, Charles began, voice firm with the authority of both sovereign and father. The institution we serve is larger than us all. Our disagreements must not undermine the duties we are bound to fulfill. William entered prepared, unfolding notes detailing incidents over the previous 18 months, each involving Camilla's requests for Catherine to surrender personal items under the guise of duty. His tone was steady, professional, stripped of the emotion that marked his earlier confrontation. This repeated pattern has created an environment where Catherine feels powerless to protect her personal belongings, he said evenly. The tiara incident was only the most visible example of behavior that cannot continue. Camilla responded swiftly, centering on her role as queen and the necessity of proper presentation at state occasions. But Charles lifted a hand, signaling judgment already formed. The sapphire tiara was a personal wedding gift from my mother to Catherine, Charles said bluntly. It was never part of the crown collection. Treating it as communal property was inappropriate, regardless of diplomatic context. The statement landed heavily for William. It was vindication. For Camilla, it was humiliation. Her cheeks flushed, but she remained silent. Charles pressed on. We will now establish a clear rule. Personal gifts, especially from the sovereign, are private property. They will only be shared if the recipient explicitly consents. William inclined his head, acknowledging the boundary, but pressed further. An apology to Catherine is also necessary. She deserves recognition for the distress she endured. Camilla stiffened, but Charles's expectant gaze left her no choice. After a fraught pause, she offered words that rang hollow. I regret that Catherine was distressed by my request. It was not my intention to cause upset, and I will respect the boundaries we have agreed upon. The apology fell short of genuine remorse, but Charles cut off further dispute, focusing on restoring stability rather than extracting sincerity. That afternoon, the tiara returned to Catherine's custody. She received it with gratitude, tinged by sorrow, aware that its meaning had been indelibly altered. Weeks later, when she finally wore it again at a private gathering, its sapphires sparkled brilliantly, yet the ordeal had dimmed their radiance in her eyes. Publicly, the family facade held firm. Joint engagements resumed, carefully worded statements projected unity. Privately, however, relationships had shifted permanently. William's fierce defense of Catherine established him as a future king unwilling to compromise when his wife's dignity was at stake. Staff too recognised the change with relief, knowing Catherine now enjoyed explicit protection from the manipulations she had borne silently within palace circles. The Japanese dinner became remembered as the night that changed everything. The tiara's sapphires still dazzled, but they carried the invisible weight of a family crisis that reshaped loyalties, hardened boundaries, and preserved the monarchy only through painful confrontation. The tiara scandal ripped away the glittering mask of royalty, exposing raw emotion, fragile loyalties, and ruthless power plays behind palace doors. What began as Queen Camilla's bid to dazzle at a state dinner spiraled into a showdown that reshaped the monarchy. Prince William's fiery defense of Catherine proved no centuries-old protocol can silence a husband's instinct to protect his wife. His fearless confrontation with the Queen revealed a future king who values principle over pageantry. For Catherine, the ordeal exposed the peril of marrying into royalty, where even a wedding gift can be weaponized. Yet her quiet dignity and William's unwavering support turned vulnerability into vindication. The palace survived, but the balance of power shifted forever. What other secrets remain hidden? Subscribe now, hit that like button, share, and comment to follow every royal revelation.